Modern.
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 We're prepping for a voyage.
Modern.
The force of an old-fashioned equals whiskey mass times bitters acceleration.
Why don't you make that a double?
Modern Bar Cart.
What's shaking, cocktail fans? Welcome to episode 128 of the Modern Bar Cart podcast. I'm your host, Modern Bar Cart CEO Eric Kozlik. This time around, we have a great crossover episode for you, where the tables are turned and I'm suddenly the one being interviewed alongside my friend Braeden Bumpers of McClintock Distilling. This interview was conducted by beverage broadcaster Chris Sands of the Uncapped Podcast, who spends most of his time in the craft beer space, but has recently been branching out to spirits and cocktails. Before we jump into the interview, I do have a few quick announcements for you. First, let's do that holiday discount thing. If you visit modernbarcart.com right now, you'll see a little pop-up that says, hey, you can receive 15% off your entire order by entering a coupon code. Well, that's fine, but here's what I'm going to do for all you listeners out there. If you enter the coupon code HOLIDAYPOD, Holiday P-O-D, all one word, at checkout, you'll receive 20% off your order from modernbarcart.com. That's an extra 5% just for being a podcast listener. Nobody else knows about this discount. And as always, remember we offer free shipping on all orders over $40. And this being the holidays, I should remind you that we have an option for you to leave a gift message. And we'll print that out and put that right in the package if you're shipping it to someone for the holidays. Next, if you happen to be in Washington, D.C., we've got a few cool opportunities for you to hang out with me and the rest of the Modern Bar Cart crew. We'll be at the Wundergarten Beer Hall and Holiday Market near the Noma Gallaudet Metro this coming weekend, November 14th and 15th, and then again the following Saturday, December 21st. You can grab a beer and sample or purchase a bunch of great holiday cocktail gifts at that event. Also, next Tuesday, December 17th, I'll be taking part in an event series called Little Salon, which will be held at a private residence in Northwest D.C. This is an intimate, ticketed gathering of about 50 people, where there will be lots of live music spanning various artists and genres, a cigar box juggler, whatever that means, a live Santa for selfies, and of course, me. Yeah, I'll be there too, with my bitters. It's BYOB, which is nice. You can kind of tailor it to your needs. And the tickets are about $20, which is pretty reasonable. And we'll include a link to that Eventbrite page over in the show notes. Thanks for staying with me through those brief announcements. And you know what? As a reward, let's go make you a drink. This episode's featured cocktail is the Hot Ale Flip, in honor of Chris's beer background, and I thought this might be a nice holiday-appropriate and historical recipe to share. The Hot Ale Flip comes from a time before cocktails. In fact, it's one of several proto-cocktails where bartenders, or more accurately, tavern owners and barmaids, would play around with combining various ingredients to make some sort of concoction that was greater than the sum of its parts. Not quite a cocktail, but definitely moving in the direction of a cocktail. There were two interesting drink-making techniques that were popularized during this time. One involved taking a red-hot poker or firebrand and submerging it in your beverage to bring it up to a simmering temperature. This served the purpose of both warming the drink and probably killed anything nasty that might have been lurking there in the pre-refrigeration age. The other relevant technique we need to mention before I give you the recipe is tossing a drink. This was the room temperature precursor to shaking or stirring a drink over ice, and it simply entailed pouring the drink from one container to another until the contents were all mixed. It also added quite a bit of air to the equation, which often resulted in a frothy head. So, now that you know these two important techniques, let's make our hot ale flip. The ingredients you'll need to make it are 8 ounces of dark ale, like a porter or a stout, 1.5 ounces of dark rum or brandy, 1.5 ounces of a brown sugar syrup, which is basically just a simple syrup made using brown sugar instead of granulated table sugar. And finally, 1 whole egg. In a heat-safe container, whisk together the spirits, brown sugar syrup, and the egg. Then, heat up the ale in a saucepan until it's steaming hot but not quite simmering. You don't want those bubbles. This would be our modern-day equivalent to the red hot poker. Now, when you add the beer to the spirits, sugar, and egg mixture, you'll want to do that very gradually, whisking the entire time so as to avoid cooking the egg. In other words, you want to raise the temperature gradually, otherwise you're going to cook the egg and there's going to be a bunch of weird egg stuff floating around. Then you want to toss the drink, as we just described, between 2 vessels before then pouring it into a heat-safe mug and garnishing with some nice, freshly grated nutmeg, the ultimate spiced garnish. Even if this sounds a little complicated to make, it's a very hearty, satisfying cocktail. When the days grow dark, so does the beer, and what better way to dress up your favorite porters and stouts for the holidays than by dazzling your guests with a round of hot ale flips. So, now that you've got a wicked old school cocktail to keep you warm through this episode, let's turn our attention back to the crossover interview with Uncapped host Chris Sands and Braeden Bumpers of McClintock Distilling. Some of the topics we discuss include a little modern bar cart company history, including how our bitters are made and why we're still cranking out podcasts after 2.5 years in the trenches, a discussion of whiskey tasting notes and the strange world of online spirits reviews, how Braeden and I set up our upcoming Bar Room Blitz event, which will take place on Friday, December 13th, the day after this episode airs. There may be a few extra tickets released the day of the event, so feel free to check out the show notes page for a link to Eventbrite. We also conduct a tasting of 3 special McClintock Innovation Series releases, including a wheat whiskey, a gin collaboration, and a hop-infused American single malt created in collaboration with the Uncapped Podcast. They were some delicious spirits. This is a great conversation. It was so much fun to be on the other side of the interview for a change, so I hope you enjoy this crossover episode with Chris Sands of the Uncapped Podcast.
Welcome to the Uncapped Podcast. This is episode 158, and I'm your host, Chris Sands. Today we are joined by, I don't even know how many times you've been on at this point.
Too many.
What? Too many?
Happy to be back.
Braeden Bumpers from McClintock Distilling, and also first-time guest, Eric Kozlik, who I nailed the name.
Nailed it.
Apparently people for some reason have trouble pronouncing a 6-letter.
Yeah, 2 syllables.
Yeah, that gets hard.
Hey, man.
And Eric, I assume founded Modern Bar Cart.
Yeah, I'm the co-founder and CEO.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got a couple of business partners, but I'm the full-time guy.
And the face.
Yeah, exactly. The face, the nose, the profile, kind of an Alfred Hitchcock type deal going on here. But we've been rocking in DC since about 2015.
So why don't you tell us what Modern Bar Cart is?
Mm-hmm.
From my understanding, it is a multi-pronged endeavor.
Always trying to add a little bit more value. Yeah, we started actually as a little cocktail bitters company called Embitterment, and we still make those bitters. I did like a 10-hour shift yesterday, making all the bitters that we sell. So instead of being our brand, now Embitterment's a product line. It's kind of like our flagship product line that we still manufacture. And I think the other main thing that Modern Bar Cart is about is really education, which is obviously something you can relate to. Our first
being
event,
that I need a lot of it.
No. I mean, you're doing great work here in the beer and spirits world. So, but I think for me, the first time it became really apparent that bitters and education and cocktails all kind of needed to be in the same conversation was the first event where we ever sold our product, which was a event called DC Veg Fest in like September of 2015. And we knew we had a bit of a niche product in cocktail bitters, especially in 2015 for at least for like mass consumption. They were, fairly unknown at that point. And we figured, all right, we got to pick our spot. So who's going to know what cocktail bitters are? Well, all these hippie vegans and their essential oils and extracts at this vegan festival, or stated differently, people who care about what they put in their body, right? They're going to know. And yet, even though we thought we had really self-designated with that audience, we still spent the entire time just explaining what cocktail bitters were. And so that I always go back to that moment as the inflection point where we realized that education was super, super important.
So I think now would be a really good time to explain what a cocktail bitter is.
Yeah. Oh, totally. I guess we should probably start with that, huh? So I make these things. They're magical tinctures. Basically, cocktail bitters are a flavor extract. So what you have are what I call 3 different agents. You can think of them as secret agents that all have different jobs. There's your extracting agent, and that is the thing that pulls the flavor out of the other things. All right. So in our case, it's just a grain neutral spirit. We use different proofs to extract different ingredients, different things. So, for example, like a delicate lavender is going to want to be extracted at a different proof than, for example, our organic orange peels. So I was just talking about that off air here. We extract those at like complete 95% ABV, because if you think about what you're trying to pull out of an orange peel, it's those essential oils. And so what doesn't mix? Well, oil and water. So the less water you have in that process,
that makes sense.
The better the pull on that orange oil is going to be. So that's the extracting agent that we use. Other folks can use glycerin, but that provides a little bit of flavor and mouthfeel that we don't super jive with. And then there's your flavoring agents. Talking about our orange bitters, it's probably our best seller in the essentials line. We just use a ton of beautiful organic oranges, a few select spices. We throw like a little fennel seed in there, a couple pods of star anise per 15-liter batch. And then finally, there's the bittering agent, which for us is organic gentian root. And gentian it's incredibly bitter. And, that's what takes cocktail bitters from being just a flavor extract to an actual cocktail bitter. So you need to have a bittering agent in there. So gentian root's been used for centuries, probably even millennia as a stomach settler. It's a really medicinal product, and for us, we like it because it's super bitter, but also super clean. It doesn't have like a lot of other flavors floating around, like something, for example, like wormwood. Okay. It's very bitter, but it's also got some other kind of funky metallic flavors in there. That
do those things that they come in the it's like a little bottle wrapped in a paper bag. I can't remember the name of them. Something I think it's like a German word.
Is it Underberg?
Yeah,
Underberg.
Is that what's in those?
I'm not quite sure what their bittering agent is, but I think gentian is
like the same type of
thing.
Yeah, we'll just go with thing.
Yeah, it's pretty popular, and it's sourced in Europe, so it makes sense that a lot of the European Amari and bitters are going to be using gentian root as one of their primary bittering agents. Of course, some of them may also throw in wormwood and stuff like that. You don't just have to have one bittering agent; you can have a profile. But for us, we do 2 things that makes us special in the bitterness category. One, we use just gentian, and in that respect, it's kind of our constant. All the other, we can change between flavors, but I know that gentian flavor is going to be the same every time. So I can kind of dial it in really precisely. And then the other cool thing that we do is we actually, and this is a pro tip, other people out there can feel free to steal this practice, but we create our bittering agent as a separate extract. And then we dope it into the final product to basically kind of take into account some of the variation that we get. So if we use fresh oranges, well, sometimes those oranges come from California, sometimes they come from Florida. Right now is one of those points in the season where we're seeing the citrus sources switch, and there's just a little flavor variation, but because I have that bittering agent as a separate extract, I get to have really tight control of that and put out a really consistent product regardless of some of that variability.
Okay, that makes sense. So is the process of making it kind of like distilling? Because I always want, because there's this product called the Pico Brew. Have you ever seen it? No. It's like a bread maker for brewing beer, where it's like a machine. It comes with like a Keurig pod almost for beer. You put it in, you press the button, and it just. Well, then they started selling this
Pico still.
The Pico. Well, I don't. Do they call this a still though?
Yeah.
Are they?
It's first. Yeah. Something
it's for
else.
essential oils.
Yeah.
So it was. I always wonder, like, is that how essential oils are made too? Is it like a distillation type thing, or
Sometimes. So, for example, like rose water and orange blossom water would be distilled like a spirit, except they would just use water. Okay. So, in that situation, what they're doing is they're heating up that water, and the water vapor is catching. They call it a hydrosol. It's catching the flavor from those orange petals or those orange blossom petals, the rose petals. But for us, we're making, I think of it more as like a botanical tea using alcohol and water, because it's not 100% alcohol. There's both alcohol and water in different kind of ratios in the mix, but we're essentially creating a tea that when we strain it out is a flavor extract.
So maceration.
Exactly. It's a maceration.
Braeden taught me that word.
He's a champion of the tetrasyllabic words.
That's it. That's cool. That's interesting. And I wonder how many people buy those Pico stills and use them for.
We had somebody in our Distilling 101 class that had a Pico still that was doing it and was asking me questions about how to use it. And I was like, I have no idea how this thing works. It looks like a Keurig machine.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, everything we just learned about like pressure and temperature and how to distill, it seems like it's just like a button you press. It says distill this. It says, I mean. Probably didn't need to come to the class.
Yeah, but like what I'm wondering is like, because they advertise it as for making essential oils. I'm gonna bet that there's maybe like 2% of the people, because
it's a still that attaches to something that makes beer. Yeah. I would be very shocked if somebody was using that to make essential oils.
Yeah, I think it's probably closer to like 50% of the people who get them.
Because I want to look at it and like, is there a wink, wink, nudge, nudge in the instructions about making liquor in it?
Right, like that grape thing from Prohibition where they'd sell the bricks of the essentially like grape must, and they'd be like, listen, guys, definitely do not put this in water and leave it on your counter for 4 days, because then it'll be wine, and that is illegal, so don't do that.
We do not want you doing that.
Yeah.
There was there was something else I learned about during Prohibition I thought was really interesting. It was something about the way yeast was sold. There was something about yeast packets and some kind of like wink wink instructions on them that would basically told you how to make beer at home.
Yeah, probably like the bread version of that.
Yeah, I think so. There's so many cool stories from Prohibition other than the actual Prohibition part of it.
Right.
So you make bitters. Yep. But you do other stuff too, right?
Yeah, so we have at this point 8 different flavors of bitters. We actually have before I get into some of the other stuff, we actually do have a couple cool new projects that I should talk about. We have teamed up so far with Catoctin Creek Distilling out in Purcellville, and also Sagamore Spirit here in Maryland, and we've actually done
just the little guys.
Just the little guys, you know. But we've done bespoke bitters for them. So we've taken their products, their flavors, and their stories, and created flavors that kind of speak to those. So, for example, with Sagamore, we to proof down our NGS, we actually get the water that they source from Sagamore Farms and that they use to make their spirits, and then we also take some of their barrel scrapings, and then we finish the bitters with that. And then to kind of talk about the horse racing tradition, we also use things like red clover as a botanical in there. You know, what do horses eat? You know, so we got dandelion, red clover in there. Just kind of try and tell some of the stories of what they're doing. And then we recently just released a coffee nut bitters made specifically for the Matchbox restaurant group. So on all of their winter menus, you can enjoy cocktails using our Squirrel Jitters coffee nut bitters.
Say that 10 times fast.
Yeah. So I was happy that they let me name that, because to me that was the only possible name for a coffee nut bitters. But yeah, so we're getting a little bit more into like creating stuff for other people now, which is fun. But on the other front, you know, we have a podcast as well. It's called the Modern Bar Cart Podcast. And I do a lot of what you do. I sit down with distillers, bartenders, and cocktail authors primarily. So the people I interview are some overlap. I was listening to your interview with Jamie Winden from Lion Distilling on the way here. So we have a lot of friends in the Maryland, D.C., Virginia area, but I also do travel a little bit. I'm a spirits judge for the American Distilling Institute, so I'll be going out west again in February to do that. So
cool.
Yeah, that's been great. So
so you're one of those people who can try something and intelligently talk about it.
I can
more than grunt good or bad.
Well, I can sound intelligent. Doesn't mean that there's any substance behind it. Before I did any of this, I have 2 unrelated degrees in the humanities, which kind of explains why I'm here. I don't have. I'm a useless individual when it comes to doing
I get told
anything.
that all the time.
And yet here, so it's appropriate. We're all here together. But yeah, two unrelated degrees in the humanities, and I taught English and creative writing at the University of Maryland for a little while.
Well,
so
that's not useless.
Well, I mean, when you walk into DC and try to get an office job with a poetry degree, it's always there's some eyebrows raised, So anyway, yeah, I mean, I enjoy, when I come at flavor, whether it's the bitters that we make or a cocktail that I'm trying to talk about, or a spirit that I'm judging, I like to come at it from that kind of, like not an artistic perspective, but I like to really kind of get lost in it and try and really experience it in a deep way, and really try and connect to the person who made it, the materials that were used to make it, and I really enjoy that. So I think even though I didn't really plan it this way, I think I finally fell into the right industry.
Did you watch the video of the people who hate Braeden's website?
No, but I saw that on Facebook.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So tell us about that.
All right, so what do you remember? I don't remember the name of that.
So their group is called Whiskey Tribe, and their videos they do is under the Whiskey Vault. They're based out of Austin. It's a really awesome follow.
Well, yeah, when you posted it, I looked at it. They have a big following.
Yes.
It's a popular.
Yeah, they do reviews of all different kinds of whiskeys. They're really knowledgeable about the industry. I'm still not exactly sure how they ended up with a bottle of Bootjack, because
Wood said it was a gift.
Okay,
From some,
I think
he real quickly said it was a gift, and then said someone's name.
Yeah, I think one of our regulars brought it down there to Austin.
Okay.
So
I'm going to Austin next summer.
We'll have to send the bourbon with you next.
I can take the bourbon, and I'll take a no cover with them.
Yeah, maybe we'll have a website redesigned by that. Yeah, so I think the verdict on ours was, I think, surprisingly good for how bad our website is. They spent 30 minutes on it.
Well, I would argue that there's something wrong with a person that spends 30 minutes trying to find.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, I give up after like a minute.
Yes, yeah. It was on us. The whiskeys are very new, so we don't really have very much information online, because, up until this point, it's pretty much we'll release it and sell out that day, so we don't really.
It doesn't require marketing,
right? And we don't want to advertise come to McClintock.
Yeah.
We have rye and bourbon, when we very rarely have rye and bourbon right now. So. So we don't have a ton of information about the whiskey.
But so I didn't bring that up to rag on your website, although I do enjoy any opportunity.
Of course.
It was more. See, I wish you would have heard it, and I guess when we took a break, I could have played that for you, so you could. But or I mean, you could speak to it too, Braeden. Like they had a lot of descriptions and things to say about. Is that so? Whenever I hear someone talk that in depth about what they're tasting when they taste anything, my mind just simply thinks, all right, whatever, because I feel like they just start to say more things to sound more authoritative.
Sure.
Are those all accurate flavors to taste from Bootjack, or were they?
So I think a lot of the tasting notes that they put out were very much what we
there wasn't
taste.
Theirs aren't as over the top as some people were.
And I think it's a double-edged sword, because we get we submit to the competitions, and we get tasting notes back of what people are trying, And it's really helpful for us as manufacturers to get notes like that. And a lot of the tasting notes or mouthfeel or nosing is really important to us in the product we're trying to make out. But on the other side, some people we get notes back that are ridiculous. They're like, you need to add less honey. There's too much honey flavor in a product that we don't add, has no honey to it. Or like, we got somebody said that we had a nosing of like fall foliage, like grass clippings or something like that. And I was like, I don't really understand what that flavor is. We
Stop
tried
making the spirits in the fall.
Right, yeah. So like we have a sheet of 114 compounds that we usually try to look through. We know what the general tastes are, and if there's too much of one element, like if there's too much, vanilla, we know we could probably cut down the time in the barrel because that's probably coming from the lignins and the wood, and it helps to get those notes from people that are accurate and based on what they taste like. We know what compound that is that we can change or adjust to kind of fit what people like and continue to improve our products.
Now, I think one of the things they pointed out too is that it was really good for how young it was for being a 2-year. Do you think that a lot of people? Eric's nodding his head yes.
You're asking the right question. I like this.
Do you think a lot of people read that and just make up that, like, the flavor based on age, in that they put way too much stock in how long something has been aged?
Yes and no. I think there is definitely a sweet spot. I personally haven't, a lot of what we're looking for, these reactions that are in the barrel, they just require exposure to oxygen. They require time. Like, you won't get the development of these aldehydes that give you that like rich bouquet and complexity until like 9 or 10 months in the barrel. So like, I've had excellent whiskeys that are 2 months, 3 months aged, but it's not the same depth that you get with something that takes a little bit longer. And for us, we use smaller barrels, so ours are 30 gallons. If you go down to Kentucky, you'd usually see like 53-gallon barrels. So the extraction of the wood flavors all depends on surface volume ratio. So
are they larger than 53?
Yeah. You can get a punch-in barrel. It's 500 gallons.
Oh wow!
You could live in that one. So we like the 30 gallons for our boot jack and our matchstick because we are a small distillery. So I want to make a good whiskey, but I can't afford to sit on it for 4 or 5, 6 years. And in a 30-gallon barrel, you wouldn't want to, because you get over oaked, you lose the complexity of the spirit itself. We do have a few 53-gallon barrels that I would like to do as like a 6 to 8 year. But just me personally, I enjoy whiskey that has a balance. Like I was at a Cured out in Columbia. It's a whiskey bar, and they just got in their allocation of their Pappy 18 and all of this. And I found myself, I really enjoyed, out of all of their rare whiskeys, the Weller 12-year was my favorite. It was the youngest out of all of the allocated bottles. So I like a good balance, but that's just me personally.
I think the other thing too is, like, when you hear somebody complimenting a 2-year whiskey, for example, I think inevitably that means they're complimenting the base spirit at a disproportionate ratio compared to something that's like 8 or 10 years, right? And I think one of the quality markers that I look for in a distillery or in an individual spirit is the quality of the base distillate, which inevitably goes back to fermentation, which is a lot of where the art and science of distilling culminates. So when I taste a young spirit that is not over oaked because they did like little 5-gallon barrels or something so they could get it jet black in 3 months. There are certain markers to look for, and I think to have a 2-year whiskey that just performs at 2 years, it says a lot less about the the category, but it says a lot about the people making it and the care that was put into that. So I take a good young whiskey as an indicator of quality at the distillation and fermentation level.
And I think you explained to me too, like, when you distill spirits, you build the recipe based on how long you're going to age it for.
Yeah.
Like, your white whiskey is a very different. You make that a very different way than what you make Boot Jack, because Boot Jack is intended to spend that amount of 2 years in a barrel.
Right. So it actually is kind of overlap what Eric was talking about earlier with the balance of water and alcohol. And all the flavor you get comes from the oils that actually are very water soluble. So the higher proof you distill it at, the less flavor you get, but the less kind of harsh flavors, that stuff that makes you turn green around the gills. So we have the same mash for our Boot Jack and our white whiskey, but the way we distill it is completely different. If you tried the Boot Jack right from the still, it's not, you wouldn't enjoy it like you would the white whiskey, because it's made to have these really deep flavors that change and are altered in the presence of the barrel. So we do try to keep every spirit in mind of what barrel it's going into, how long it's going to be aged. Like even our barrel aged gins, we distill differently than we would our foragers. So that's what's fun about distilling.
So do you think that the 15, 18, 30-year demoners are more marketing than like more fluff than actuality, or is there really something to letting it sit that long?
I that's a really tough question to answer. I think yes and no, in that a lot of people do like that. I know people that love whiskey, and I think if they could lick the inside of a campfire, that would be the best whiskey that they could have. Yeah. It's just like very much they love like that charcoal, that really smoky, oaky, like flavor dominance. But when you try a whiskey that's American whiskey that's 23-year aged in a new cooperage charred oak barrel, that's pretty much all you get. You have very, very little presence of the actual, grain and spirit left at that point. Mm-hmm. So I think it just depends on what you like. If you like something that's super oaky, then there are 10, 12, 18, 25-year American whiskeys you can get if you're ready to spend a few $100s.
And I think you need to look at where it was matured to, right? Yeah. Like, if it's something like in northern Scotland is going to have, like a 1% to 2% loss rate evaporation year over year. So you can kind of afford, not only from like a volume, like a loss perspective, but also like an intensity perspective, to age things longer up in the Great White North. But I recently had a rum, I won't specify the brands, but I was at a bar. I was at whatever the tiki bar is in Manhattan. It's embarrassing that I don't remember what it is. The Polynesian?
Sounds like a place.
So they have like a lot of rare rums, and I was with a couple of guys who were a little bit more lightweight than I was, and we were only there for a drink, but they were still like halfway done, and I already crushed mine. So I was like, all right, well, while I'm waiting for them, I'll taste a rum, and I got it was like somewhere between like a 20 or 25-year rum, which is almost impossible to do in the Caribbean because of evaporation. So I don't know exactly where it was aged throughout its lifespan, but yeah, I tasted it, and the bartender was like very excited. I was like, how'd you like it? I was like, not impressed. Tastes like
tastes like rum.
Tastes like black oak. It just tasted like
didn't
char.
even taste like rum.
Yeah, it was tannic and flat, and so I don't necessarily buy into that super age statement type deal.
And I always look at it from the standpoint, like, I don't have a super palate when it comes to spirits and stuff, but like I've had like Jack or Baltimore Spirits Company's Epic, or even Lions, what's the one I love, the Rock and Rum, the whiskey that's made with the
Rock and Rye.
Yeah, Rock and Rye. I love those.
Yeah.
So I feel like young whiskeys are kind of like unfairly have their nose turned up to them.
Yeah, and I think it's what we've been seeing is that is starting to change, because it used to be like the bourbon drinkers in particular, but all American whiskey drinkers were so obsessed with the age statement. Even like 4 years ago when we were in just starting this company. And we were like, we can't sell anything less than 4 years. That's what everybody is clamoring about. And, we made the decision to pull it when we pulled it. So I like this balance. I don't want it to be over oaked. And a lot of those diehard, has to be at least 4-year whiskey drinkers are becoming more open-minded to trying, local stuff, small batch
Yeah.
stuff, and you get a totally different flavor. It's almost a completely different spirit than what you get. But I think that's what people are looking for today. If you want a Maker's Mark, you can buy Maker's Mark. So there's a lot of cool differentiation now in the industry.
Do you think that's because it seems like for the longest time maybe craft spirits actually weren't that great too? But
early in the industry,
historically,
or there just weren't craft spirits.
Yeah.
Right. But like a lot of like I'm talking like 10 years ago, or like small batch spirits like a decade ago weren't good like they are now.
Yes.
And not nearly as prevalent also.
It's definitely like it's a very hard industry to break into. So like, besides like Dave Pickerel, who's starting, Whistle Pig and all of these other small brands, who was with Wild Turkey for a long time, most of the small distillers were, lawyers or business people or something, and they just loved spirits and wanted to start it. And there's so much information and misinformation out there. Like we used to be on distilling forums all the time, and I look back on those and be like, this is terrible advice. Everybody's good. This is just one person who doesn't know what they're talking about sending it to another. And now like the education in the industry, apprenticeship programs, like classes like what we do, the industry is much more accessible to people who want to get into it. And the more and more independently owned distilleries that pop up, the better everyone is getting, because it's, we're I always say we're like 15 years behind where the beer movement is now. So I'm hoping we can continue to grow. And like beer, I mean, if you look at Frederick, I can't name a bad beer that's made here. They're all really good because competition lets the best stuff thrive, which is great.
So you think that plays into the age snobism a little bit? I think that was a big that's a marketing thing to stand on. Like obviously a smaller craft, there's no way they can have a 30-year, even a 15-year aged product because they haven't been around that long.
And that's what the big brands do to continue to move their product, because their biggest fear, Diageo doesn't want to see what's happening with beer happen with spirits, because craft beer is like 15% of the market now. We had our best year ever, and we're at like 3.5%. So, they really are trying to push this message of if it's not 4 years, it's not a good whiskey, which is just wrong. That's incorrect. You can make really good spirits, at different ages. So,
I think it's kind of like a safety blanket or like a security blanket mechanism that people who started drinking before the rise of good craft spirits, it was I
liked the band before it was cool.
or it's just like a paradigm where it's like, all right, if like imagine yourself in a flashback to like 1995, you go into a liquor store and what you develop a flavor for, like a flavor affinity for, is something that's, 4 to 8 years old. And then that's just your rule of thumb from there on. And flavor preferences and aversions, like they stick with you for your entire life, just like the vegetable that you hated since you were a kid, And so I think that sort of rule, people just hold it close and they won't let it go because it's been true for so long. And the fact that it might not be true anymore is a challenge to like who they are as a person, because flavor is like so intimate, So I think that's why people cling to it so strongly. And yet, like, it's not like one of those situations where we want to like go call people out because it's still good juice, right?
Yeah.
8-year bourbon's still good. I'll take a bottle of Old Medley any day,
Absolutely.
But yeah, so it's not something you want to call people out on, but I think there are some like misconceptions about why people hold so tight to that belief.
Yeah, because I always just wonder, because I know I'm not nearly as versed in spirits, especially anything outside of craft spirits. I mean, I know next to nothing about the large brands other than like the things you hear like Pappy, or like the things that people talk about to aspire to try or to get. I know nothing about any of them. So to me, it always like I'll try something made in Maryland that I really enjoy and then just don't understand what they're like, whoa, it's good for a 2-year.
It's
So I always just wonder, is it because I'm like a pedestrian?
Yeah,
Or is it?
It's just, yeah, people have different ideas and viewpoints on that. There's just so much more that goes into the flavor of a spirit than just age, and that's what I try to preach to people at the distillery. Is like, it's about the grains that go in it, and your fermentation process and how you're distilling it. Barrel aging is very important to whiskeys, but the vast majority of what you can cultivate through barrel aging comes from the grains and the fermentation and the yeast strain you're using. And I argue that is more important than how long it's been in the barrel.
All right, so I took us way off track from our
super tangent
from our list of topics that we were going to cover.
Yeah, we have an event to promote apparently.
All right, so to get us back on track, we are going to try something that I've been going on about for a year and a half?
Yes.
No, going on 2 years now.
Yeah.
Although I can't remember when I started making everyone taste it. Probably a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
This is the finished product. So far, I think we've had 2 guests that have gotten to try this so far. Both of them liked it.
Nice.
So why don't you go a little bit more in depth about this, Braeden?
Absolutely. So this is the collaboration we did with you. It's a project that single malt whiskeys were the first love of my life. So we wanted to do a single malt. It is a 80% two-row brewer's malt with a 20% chocolate malted barley finish. So already we were starting with something that's very different from most single malts that were there. And then we were fortunate to work with the guys at Monocacy, Tom Flores, to pick out some hops.
I wish he had a doctorate because
Dr.
it'd be like
Tom Flores.
Yeah, Dr. Tom
He
Flores
knows
seems
more,
like it should be
about beer than I think anybody else I've ever met. It's incredible. So we tasted through the first distillate we did of the single malt and paired it with UK Golding and Meridian hops.
We can let out the secret now?
Yeah, we can say it now. A secret blend that I forgot last time.
When we were right when we were distilling it, we just shot a video hey, this is what we're doing and neither one of us could remember the name of the second hop. So Bray was like, and a secret hop.
Secret hop. So the secret's out. UK Golding and Meridian hops. So we vapor infuse that using our gin basket as we're distilling the single
That's
malt.
wicked smart.
It is, because from trying other hopped whiskeys,
they can get a little overwhelming.
Yeah, that I'm pretty sure did not go that route. It does not taste as good.
Yeah,
I tried to make a hop syrup once and it did not fare well.
It's really, hops are tough because there's so many bitter components to it. So with the vapor infusion, we extracted a lot of that nice, kind of almost papaya, banana fruit note.
And I think that a lot of the other distillers will go and they'll use popular hops that are popular in beer.
Right.
And you were smart enough to consult with Dr. Flores to
enough to find the smartest guy to help out with this.
Pick hops that held up.
Right.
Because the brewers that I've had try this were amazed that you could pick up any hop still.
And that's we wanted to make this that it wasn't like you're drinking an IPA flavored whiskey. We wanted to make a whiskey that has complementary notes from the hops. So those 2 hops are really nice. A lot of fruit, a little bit of banana in there, and then the chocolate just kind of cleans it up. It's like that rich espresso kind of dark chocolate note. So I was really excited with the way this one came out. It was one of my favorite whiskeys we've made so far.
Well, that's what I had been trying for so long.
The small barrel.
I aged some in a 3-liter barrel, and that's what for a year and a half I had been once a week trying it. And then 2 weeks ago we pulled this from the barrel, and I liked it before, but man, is it so good now.
Yeah.
Actually aged in
full
a real
size barrel for 2 years really came out really nice. And I was really happy because that was the one kind of variable, is what you're saying, was a lot of times if it's in too long, the hops can get stuck in the wood and you're just left with a whiskey that doesn't have any flavor to it. And so it was really nice to see that both hops are still very much present in this whiskey. So it's nice. Yeah. But if you're expecting a whiskey IPA, this is not the one for you.
No, this is just a good whiskey.
Yeah.
Although it can't be called a whiskey, though, right?
That's right. It's a spirit. It's a spirit. So
distilled from hops and
yes,
grain.
yeah, because there's something besides grain in it. It is a specialty spirit, not a whiskey. But for all intents and purposes, it's single malt whiskey.
All right, so maybe we can touch a little bit more on that in the release of it when we talk more about your 3-year anniversary party. But I think now let's talk about the Bar Room Blitz.
Yes.
Which I thought for sure I was going to say the wrong thing because I, for some reason, have it stuck in my head that it's the Ballroom Blitz.
Yes.
But it is the Bar Room
Blitz.
Blitz.
Yeah, we're excited. This is it's kind of an on-trend thing. Cocktail competitions. I was able to MC one at an event recently called Emporium in DC, and that was a lot of fun. Then I also recently attended the Catoctin Creek Battle of the Bartenders in Loudoun County, which is also a ton of fun. So I
think one of our editors was a judge for that, or maybe Trevor, or maybe he was just there attending it.
I think he might have just been there attending.
Covering it maybe then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, a lot of fun. So I've been kind of like looking at cocktail competitions where you get you get a bunch of bartenders, you bring them in, you throw a curveball at them of some sort, and then you watch them do their work. They have to, come up with a cocktail concept using something under a certain set of constraints, and then the audience will taste it. There will either be like crowdsourced judging, kind of like a people's choice vote, or there will be a panel of judges, and then eventually, after a series of these, rounds, one might say, a winner is declared based on some point system. So that's the concept of what a cocktail competition is.
I emceed one for the Maryland Restaurant Association at their expo like 2 years ago. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, they are a ton of fun. There's a lot of moving parts, actually, and especially if you have more than like a couple bartenders, there becomes more and more moving parts. So I'll kind of walk you through the way that the Bar Room Blitz is going to work. I think with McClintock's space and with our approach, I think we're set up for a super fun event, and we've done a lot of like legwork to try and make sure that it's going to go super smooth and be really fun. So it's going to begin with a cocktail hour where 6 bartenders from around Frederick they're going to have the chance to like kind of pre-prepare something without any constraints from us. And then, the people will get a chance to taste their cocktails. They get a chance to talk to the bartenders. They'll get to walk around and interact. And each person who comes through the door will be given like 2 people's choice, like voting tickets or tokens. Mm-hmm. And so what they can do, and this is kind of one of the cool parts about this, is that if they feel so strongly that one drink is better than all the rest, then they can put both of those 2 tokens or tickets as a vote toward one individual, or you can pick your 2 favorites and kind of like give each one a little bit of love. So we've given people kind of a way to have a really interesting style of voting that's atypical. And so from the 6 bartenders that present cocktails, 3 of them will be selected to move on to like the competition round. And then the other 3 bartenders will actually assist them during the competition. So they'll kind of be bar backs for them. So they're still going to be in the process of making drinks, fully engaged. And so after the People's Choice round, we're going to have 2 rounds, kind of chop style. So the first round, there will be 3 kind of contenders, then 1 person will get chopped. And then the final round, there will be 2 sets of contenders. And then finally, we'll have our winner. So that's the kind of like the shape of the competition.
Do you have a rundown that you want to go over who the contestants and everything are
Sure.
now? Okay.
So we have the participating bartenders. We have folks from JoJo's, Hometown Harvest, Guidehouse Grill, Volt, Wine Kitchen, and Dan's Tap House. That is our 6.
I'm pretty sure if Hometown Harvest just brings ice cream with them, they'll get my vote.
I was having some of their boozy milkshakes 2 weeks ago, and they were
I didn't even
so
have a
good.
Boozy milkshake. I just had some of their regular ice cream. It's amazing.
He's awesome, and they're kind of revamping their bar program at their restaurant down on the creek. So the timing is great, and I always like their stuff. It's all, Frederick grown ingredients. He's preparing a drink for the first round with fresh carrot juice that they grew on their farm, which is cool.
Oh, yeah.
No more spoilers besides that one.
Yeah, way to ruin it for them.
But it's really fun. And we wanted to do, every December, we try to do as a company something to raise money for nonprofits. So the concept of this idea was really cool, that we wanted to give back to causes that were important to the competitors, because these guys are taking a day off work when they could be making money to come down and do this fun event. So each bartender has a nonprofit that's important to them, and then the further they get in the competition, the more money is raised for their cause. So 100% of the profits for this event are being donated to nonprofits. And we really want this to be a fun event for everybody. The competition is going to be a blast. But if you want to just come down, try some cocktails, hang out, that's fine too. Yeah, we want it to be everybody have a good time.
I actually just bought the shirt that I'm going to wear to this event. If you want to see a selfie in a mirror in a random Marshalls in DC, you can see that there are deer. It's a winter event. There's deer in a snowy landscape. So pass that around. Oh yeah, we got the camera. Yeah, so I'm going to be dressed in like some crazy duds. I'll be running around with a microphone.
That's nice.
I'll have my gang here with some cameras and mics. So we'll be recording some goofy stuff, catching some of these antics on camera for the competition as well. But yeah, I love the charitable aspect. I think it's so easy for us to take the tickets, cover our costs, because obviously there are operating costs in a competition, but then just be able to just direct the rest of it to philanthropic organizations is a nice touch, especially around the holidays.
Mm-hmm. Braeden told me I had to dress nice. So.
Yeah, a collared shirt would do.
How about a collared shirt under a hoodie?
Yeah, that's okay. Mm-hmm. That's okay. No, it should be really fun.
The second it drops below 70 degrees, I'm in hoodies.
Yes.
That's just my rule.
Yeah, that's okay. You can have collared shirt in.
That's
hoodie.
why we got married in the summer.
Yeah.
Because Beth knew that if we went into any past the summer, I'd have to have a hoodie over my tux.
That's pretty good.
Who are the judges?
So you are one of the judges. Eric is one of the judges.
Am I?
And
I thought I was the MC.
Yeah, MC.
We might have to replace me with another judge.
Yeah, we're still finalizing the judges. You are our flagship judge, so a lot of pressure on you.
But we'll get some folks who actually
study up on,
people who are well versed in the cocktail space for sure.
So
I know it tastes good.
Like
I said, I can grunt good or bad.
Yeah.
So as long as if it's like a thumbs up, thumbs down.
That's pretty much.
No, I am good. So you said there will be a scoring system.
We're gonna put together a sheet that helps people score.
See, I am good at that. Like if it was a freestyle
filling out worksheets.
Well, no, like judging things on based on criteria.
Gotcha.
If you just handed me a bunch of different things and said, here, just judge these, it would not be fair to the contestants.
Yeah.
But with depending on how the contest is framed, it is fair. But
yeah.
If based on criteria, I can definitely do that in a professional manner.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because I think that's a spot where things can go wrong. Kind of like whether you're talking about judging like a plain spirit, or in this situation a cocktail, which is more complicated. So what we told the contestants, we sent them out kind of an extensive email with talking about kind of how the rules are and how they'll be judged.
This one that I didn't read.
I don't know.
That would be the one.
There's been a lot flying around.
It is extensive.
Yeah.
There are a lot of words in it.
But we basically told them, listen, you're going to be when it comes to the chop style rounds, there will be 2 secret ingredients, or one in each round. So, part of what they'll be evaluated on is their use of the secret ingredient. Part of what they're going to be evaluated on is the overall kind of concept of the cocktail. Because think about when you go to a bar and you drink a cocktail, you see that cocktail on the menu it has a name, it has a set of ingredients and a description, and whether or not the bartender actually verbally describes it to you, read the description on the menu, there's a concept that kind of has to be fleshed out. And so that's one of the things that they'll be evaluated on, plus obviously like how beautiful they make it. Now, there's going to be a lot of little mini samples created for the crowd, and that's what those bar backs are going to be assisting with. But for the judges, they're actually going to be presenting the cocktails in glassware with with full garnishes, and that's part of what they'll be evaluated on too. So there are multiple facets, and so we'll have sheets kind of breaking those all out and a scoring system so that you can at least, even if it is kind of a soft art, at least you can kind of do it in a systematic way, which is important.
It's weird too, like though when you judge stuff that way, how often what may be your favorite isn't what wins. Like just recently with the Attaboy pumpkin carving contest, we had a list of I think we judged them on 5 criteria. There was one that I thought was the best pumpkin, but it when you judged based on criteria, it did not win.
Yeah.
So I think that's definitely especially if the people know what they're playing towards. That I think that's the best way to judge things.
Yeah, and there are stakes, right? There's real money going to real charities, and so we want the bartenders to come in and be ready to show off their best stuff.
When is it?
It is December 13th, so Friday.
The 13th.
The 13th.
Friday the 13th.
Yeah. Oh. Ooh. And it's going to be from 7 to 10:30, 11. We are little over 2/3 of the tickets already sold so far. We are expecting it to sell out, so I would say if anybody is thinking about it, buying sooner than later is probably a good idea. You can find tickets on Eventbrite, on our Facebooks for Modern Bar Cart or McClintock. And it's on our website as well.
It's on mine too.
Okay,
I had to add it manually.
Right, because I can't tag you in Facebook.
Facebook's a broken piece of crap, and you can't tag my Facebook page anymore.
Yeah, it's very strange.
I was able to just manually add it as an event.
Perfect.
It doesn't have me meant to. Facebook.
So,
all right, let's talk about the 3-year anniversary party where people will be able to buy no cover, and we'll try some of this other stuff you brought, and I want to get Eric's feedback on what bitters and stuff would work with these different spirits.
Totally, let's do it.
Okay, so first, what's this one?
So
I haven't tried this one yet.
This is a new one. This will also be released. Cheers.
Cheers. It smells incredible. Smells like banana nut bread.
It's probably the softest whiskey we've done yet. So this is a straight wheat whiskey that we finished in 10th Ward Applejack barrels. So I love wheat whiskeys. They're really soft. They're really clean. This one is...
I'm picking up too much honey.
Yeah. Yeah. So we made the wheat whiskey, and sometimes wheat whiskeys can be a little thin. So we wanted to do something to give it a little bit more body, a little more character. So this is a collaboration with 10th Ward. We got their apple brandy barrels, which were first use bourbon barrels, second use brandy, third use wheat whiskey. So this one is you don't get quite as much sweet notes from the barrel, but you get plenty of sweetness from that Applejack that was infused out of the wood. So it's a probably dangerously drinkable whiskey. It is very soft, really clean.
Yeah.
We were sipping on this the other day, and I drank too much too fast really easily. But yeah, I really like it a lot, and I'm hoping this is our second collaboration with another Maryland distillery. We're trying to do a few more of those next year as well.
Do you already have those? You just want to, or do you already have stuff in the works?
We have some plans in place. We haven't actually produced anything yet, but there's so much good juice coming out of Maryland. It's
who are you gonna work with?
So we've been there's some talks in place, but Old Line is probably one that we're looking to work with soon. If there's any other distillers listening, we love to collaborate.
Why don't you give us some details on your 3rd-year anniversary party?
Sure. So it should be really fun. It's all day, noon to 8. We'll be releasing the second and third innovation series, so both the Uncapped No Cover whiskey and the Straight Wheat whiskey. Those are under our innovation series, so they are one-off, single release, never to come back products. So definitely stop by if you want to grab a bottle. We also will have plenty of rye and bourbon on site that day as well. And we should have some food. We'll have the Sweet Farm down there making cocktails, ginger beer cocktails.
Shout out to Rachel.
Yeah, thank you, Rachel. And we have Bob McCutcheon's band picked up playing live bluegrass all day. They'll be kind of mixing and matching it up, so it should be pretty fun.
You didn't want to have double motorcycle play?
I did. After Colin injured himself last time, I thought for the sake of his well-being, that we'll get him at another event for sure.
And with the innovation series, are you selling these only in the 375s or in full 750s as well?
The innovation is only in the 375. So most of these we have really small runs of. It's usually, maybe 200-300 bottles. So we wanted to do smaller sizes so more people could try them. But they're all, you got to get them when they come out, and then they're gone forever. So they're all really fun projects, but we have enough core products right now where we're not trying to expand too many more. I think we were tasting 11 spirits over the weekend, and we're like, this is too much, too many.
Scale backs.
Yes.
Yep. That's in the craft spirits world. Does that become a problem? Like if you have too many different products,
definitely.
It's detrimental compared to.
I mean, it's definitely tough. It's always good, at the distillery, you give people options to try different stuff. But when we're really trying to get new restaurants and bars and retailers to pick up McClintock products, you can just see their eyes go wide when you pull out 23 bottles and put them up on their bar, and they're like, it's too much. So we really are trying to focus on what we're passionate about, which is our 3 whiskeys, our 3 gins, and then we have the vodka and the cordial line as well to kind of round it out. But we aren't really trying to add too much more into that right now. This was kind of the plan from the beginning, is we make what we love, which is gin and whiskey.
I think it can be done well, and I think it can be done poorly. There's think about Sagamore Spirit. We make rye. Rye. Would you like to try some rye? And that's fine, right? Like that's their thing. And then McClintock, you guys do, kind of a range of different products with different distillate bases. And then there's Lion Distilling. They do a line of different products, but with the same distillate base. So I think as long as you have like a paradigm or a governing vision that is somehow separate from the economics of it, something that makes you good and interesting, like regardless of the money aspect, then I think it's good, and then the money will follow. But I think if you just, start with a rum and then do a vodka and then a gin and then the whiskey's ready, and then it can feel a little disjointed. So I think it's probably the toughest way to do it is the way that you've done it, which is to have multiple different spirit offerings but still have that feeling that it's all working toward a cohesive idea of like what great craft spirits are, because I think that can get easily lost if you're just trying to launch SKUs.
So of the 2 we've tried so far, which one do you like better?
I like the wheat whiskey.
Oh, you're wrong.
I mean, the hop one was cool. Actually, one comment I had on the hop was, sometimes when you taste like those super like high dark chocolate bars, you get almost like a winey note on that. Like you get some really interesting, like almost whiskey or fruity tastes that you get from certain barrel-aged spirits. And that, I got that really beautiful, like super like high acidity dark chocolate out of there. And I think the hops really brought that out.
What was it was made with a lot of chocolate malt too.
Chocolate malt, yeah.
I mean, straight off the still, it tasted like chocolate. Like it was chocolate.
Yes.
All right. So what kind of cocktail would you make with that? What bitters would you use, or would you not use that in a cocktail?
So with the hop infused single malt, right? I would probably go in some direction of like a bitter like a Boulevardier riff. So there's like I can never remember if it's called the Old Pal or the Man About Town, but it's basically a Boulevardier made with Cynar instead of the traditional Campari. So you got your base spirit, which in this case would be a whiskey. You've got your Cynar, and then you've got like a sweet vermouth. And those are all made in equal parts. You stir that up, you put it over a nice big rock, and then you garnish it with a citrus twist. For this, because there's so much interesting flavor with that, the hop infused and the chocolate malt, I would actually pair that back. So I'd take the idea of the Cynar kind of like bitter drink, and I would just do a Manhattan ratio with 2 ounces of this and an ounce of Cynar, stir that up and make it like a Manhattan, because there's so much interesting flavor here. It kind of reminds me of like a Man About Town or one of those really vegetal Amari cocktails, but you can actually pair it back and just make a Manhattan ratio and have this be like a beautiful sipper that still, you know, that has the flavors of the base spirit still really front and center.
I'm super lazy, so I will probably drink every drop of it just poured over an ice cube. My thing these days is highballs. So I get to like take my spirit and then I'll just put it, sparkling water over it, and it dilutes it, it chills it down. I still get the base flavor, but it's so easy to sip. That's my thing these days. What about the wheat?
The wheat,
which you think is the better?
I just have a special spot in my heart for wheat whiskey. It's not, there's not too many people doing it, and it's usually not done well. So when I come across one that's done well, it's almost like going to another country and finding a food that was like discontinued in your country that they still make. That's how I think about it anyway. That it's, you know what I would almost do with this, it has to go in sort of the old fashioned camp. Because it's got like that honey and that apple in there. I don't know. Another idea. There's a Maryland cocktail called the Diamondback, which is made with rye, and I believe, or maybe apple brandy, and a little bit of yellow chartreuse and maybe some sweet vermouth. And so I think that could also maybe be in that Diamondback category, because it's got like the apple notes from the brandy barrel. I really love apple spirits. I think if I had to pick one base fruit, it would be apple as my favorite. I love Calvados.
All right, so then we have, what was your first collaboration, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is the Frederick's Series Gin. But it's Jennifer, though, right?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is
TTB. We had to call it a gin, not a Jennifer.
It's weird how, I mean, I guess it makes sense that they have rules governing that, but it's so, like, I mean, like,
the rules are good for the most part. It's frustrating to deal with, but they're also the rules that says, Diageo can't take Jack Daniels and put it in a fancy bottle and say craft distilled by, this family in Iowa or whatever, and put it on there. So they're annoying, but they are helpful.
Yeah. Although in some ways they kind of get in the way of craft spirits, because like the no cover, it is a whiskey, but you can't advertise it as a whiskey because it has hops added into it.
Yeah.
But that didn't do anything to take it away from being a whiskey.
Yeah. And, a lot of these probably could be updated. But, I understand why they do that. They're trying to protect
it makes sense.
Property. Like, that's one of our biggest exports is American whiskey all over the world, and people come to know it. And, when you start getting into like the, open that door, then you get the fireballs and the honey whiskeys, and you get a little out of hand. Not my favorite stuff anyways, but yeah. So this innovation series, so this was our first release. We still have a few bottles left at the distillery. As a collaboration with the Baltimore Spirits Company. They're making some really awesome, they're like us, they love whiskey and gin. So we took some of their whiskey low wines, and we distilled some of our Bootjack rye low wines, switched them, and then distilled the respective whiskeys into a Dutch-style Jennifer. So this was one of my favorite projects we've done, because
Which we've learned from the past, you don't like the Dutch.
Well, yeah, that's right. I hate the Dutch. So we made something that they do, and we did it better. No, so we did.
What's a low wine?
So it's like the first run through of spirits. So if you're doing, if you're making a whiskey that's, like a Scotch is double distilled. So you distill it into a spirit, you take that spirit, put it back in the still, run it through again, and that's your finished spirit.
Okay.
So it cleans it up a little bit more. We generally don't do that. We have the hybrid still, so we can distill straight from grain into finished product. But the Baltimore Spirits Company does do stripping runs and finishing runs. So we basically,
So
after
you just
the first
ran yours
run,
like
the way they would.
Yeah. Okay.
So then we switched those low wines and then redistilled them through. And it was really fun because, normally when you make a gin, it's a blank profile. You're starting with basically a vodka, so there's not a lot of flavor there, and you can build the character of the gin from all the botanicals that you put into it. This one, a traditional Dutch Genever, still has that character of the base fermentable in there. So traditionally it's malted barley, but we wanted to put a Maryland twist on it and make it malted rye. So with this one, we already had this like really robust, like full-bodied, malty rye base, really rich, like black pepper and cardamom notes. So we wanted to make a really subtle botanical mix that kind of complemented and promoted the actual flavor of the spirit rather than covering it up. So this one is like a very savory mix. We wanted to promote that black pepper spice of the rye, so a little bit of fennel, coriander, we actually added some more cardamom on the back end, so it came out really nice. It's 84 proof, but a nice gentle sipping Genever.
This would be great in a martini.
Yeah.
Well, you know what to do, Eric.
Yeah.
What would you do with this?
Yeah,
just a martini?
I mean, and that's a good martini is just like, there's a reason why it is like when you say the word cocktail, people picture a martini. It is the ultimate in like the base. Besides the old fashioned, the martini is the ultimate in like an unaged base spirit just doing its work. And I think if you could get like a really nice dry vermouth in this, and then maybe, I don't know, a few dashes of our embitterment orange bitters, and
I would definitely add that.
Yes. I think that I definitely want this in a chilled glass. And I think the cool thing that you'd probably pick up, I'm assuming I haven't made a martini with this, you'd probably pick up in a really chilled glass, you'd get the acidity of the dry vermouth, you'd get your essential citrus oils from the bitters and whatever twist you'd use, but you'd still get a lot of the spine of that grain base would still be there. And I think to me, that's why I'd want to taste this on martini, because in a martini, you often don't get that grainy note. Mm-hmm. And that's why I'd be excited to try that.
Yeah, that's what I've been telling people is like, if you want a gin and tonic, our other gins are great. They're built around gin and tonics, but this one, it's such a delicate. Yes, she does. I made her a few weeks ago. This one is, you'd lose a lot of that kind of subtle like character in a gin and tonic. So it lighter cocktails with this one, it's even sippable on its own. But yeah.
I did I let you cover everything to do with Modern Bar Cart? Thinking back, I feel like I may have cut you off on some of it.
I think so. I mean, yeah, so I can kind of talk about where we're headed, if that makes sense. We are moving more in the direction of, we're still making the bitters, but we're moving in the direction of kind of like an online marketplace. So we're currently carrying on our website, of course, our bitters, but also Element Shrub and then Pratt Standard cocktail syrups. So we have a full range of like 20 plus mixers. We just launched some sustainable drinking straws in the stainless steel and bamboo materials, which we're excited about. We've also got a tasting journal that we created. We've got some cocktail scented soaps.
I have such a strong hatred for paper straws.
Yeah, they're bad.
I don't use straws myself ever, but try handing a kid a drink with a paper straw in it.
Yeah.
And any restaurant that does that may as well just come out and punch me too.
Yeah. And then if you drink out of it and if you leave it in there for a while, you get like that wet paper taste, and it's like, all right, well, you saved the environment, at least in your perspective, but you ruined the drink, in my perspective. So I mean, that's what we like about the bamboo and the stainless steel. But we're
so all of that is me to say, like, that's cool. I like bamboo and stainless steel much better.
Exactly. So next year we're going to be hopefully launching things like some glassware, some bartender aprons, some to really make it look and feel like a marketplace. And with the podcast, we're branching into more video. We don't have a cool little studio like this, but I do have interns, and they are willing to go on the road and do some filming with me. So that's been fun.
I need to get myself some interns.
Well, we'll talk off air. I'll teach you how to catch them. You got to be sneaky. You got to use the right bait, but it's doable. But yeah, so that's kind of where we're heading. Just kind of doing exactly what we're doing now, but more and
just
better.
Expanding on the brand.
Exactly. And just like, because right now, if you visit our site, you're like, oh, this is cool. Oh, and you can buy a few things. But hopefully by this time next year, you'll be like, oh, this makes a lot of sense. So that's where we're heading. It's it's been a multi-year rebrand process for us, but it's been a lot of fun. And this is why I love going out and talking to people about it. So this has been great.
Do you have anything else coming up that you want to talk about, Braeden?
Come to the Bar Room Blitz.
Yeah, come to the Bar Room Blitz. This is going to be so much fun. I'm really looking forward to it, and I think we've really set it up to be a more consumer-friendly event. So it's really just about having a good time.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, so it should be good. And if you do want to try any of Eric's awesome bitters, we carry his full lineup at our distillery, and we have plenty of sample bottles. So if you are into bitters, or if you're not into bitters and want to start playing around with it, he's got these awesome mix packs, so you can start playing around with different cocktails. Because I'm a terrible bartender, but Eric has made it easy to make some really cool, simple cocktails.
Well, from watching TV, you have a phenomenal bartender on staff.
Yes, that's Zach Kennedy. He made it on TV, head bartender. So, very good.
Next time your wife makes a gin and tonic, tell her to try some of either the tiki bitters or the liquid gold bitters in there. Those both go really well with gin and tonics with a squeeze of lime.
I have to pick up some more gin. I think we're out of gin. So then I'll have to get some gin, and then she can try that out.
Definitely.
I hear Tangray has pretty good deals going on.
That's
right
usually
now,
what she drinks.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't know that she's drank any other gin than Forager.
Why would you need to?
Well, especially being a member of the club.
Yeah, you get some free bottles out of it.
Well, not free, just prepaid.
That's right. Included in the cost of the Inventors Club.
I always tell people that the Forager gin was the best batch 1 spirit I've ever tasted.
Yeah, you got it right from the
And then you guys changed the mash bill, or the botanical bill.
Just a little bit.
It's still really good.
Yeah. All right, gentlemen, I want to thank you for coming out. I think we've covered everything.
Yeah.
So everyone's homework is to go to the Ballroom Blitz that takes place on
December 13th.
December 13th.
Before that, though, everyone should go to McClintock's 3rd year anniversary. I mean, if you really want to, you could get some of the wheat whiskey, but you should definitely get some of the hop infused spirit distilled from grain.
Yes.
And thank you everyone for watching and listening.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Thanks for having us.
Cheers.
Uncapped is brought to you with support from McClintock Distilling, Maryland's first and only organic certified distillery. They are well known for their award-winning gin and are rapidly growing a name for themselves for their Matchstick Bourbon and Bootjack Rye Whiskey that have both won double gold at international spirits competitions. You can visit them in historic downtown Frederick along Carroll Creek for tours and tastings. Go to McClintockDistilling.com for more information. The Uncapped Podcast is produced by Graham Cullen and me, Chris Sands. Be sure to like us on Facebook, and if you've enjoyed these podcasts, please leave us a review on Google Play or the iTunes Store. A special thanks to Double Motorcycle for providing our theme music. Thanks for listening.
Oh my God, that's good.
Hey everybody, thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, there's 2 big things you can do for us here at Modern Bar Cart. One would be to tell your friends and family if you think they'd enjoy listening to us talk about cocktails. And if they don't download podcasts, they can always stream our episodes on their desktop directly from the show notes page at modernbarcart.com. The other thing you can do to help would be to head on over to iTunes or wherever you download your podcasts and leave us a review. 5 stars are great, but we're more interested in your feedback. And the beauty is, the more reviews we have, the easier it will be for other folks out there to learn about our show. We're trying to start a cocktail revolution here, and by spreading the word, you're helping us fight the good fight. You can always reach us by emailing podcast@modernbarcart.com if you're looking for cocktail or bartending advice, or if you're a pro who would like to pull up a mic and be interviewed for all to hear. Also, definitely follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Modern Bar Cart for cocktail porn, recipes, and entertaining tips. And keep an eye out for new product releases and special offers, which are happening all the time. We love our listeners, and we really enjoy giving you exclusive discounts and sneak peeks at our latest and greatest cocktail projects. This episode may be over, but for you, the mixological fun and adventures are just beginning, so remember, folks, drink responsibly and experiment boldly. This episode was made possible with editing and production assistance by Samantha Reed, spirits and cocktail competition insights by Braeden Bumpers and Chris Sands, and a little bit of colored commentary by yours truly. This has been a Modern Bar Cart production, copyright 2019.